All right, today I'm hitting you with 4 players in Dynasty Football that I just keep sending trade offers out for. I'll show you some trades that I've made and advise you to do the same. Do me a massive favor. Go ahead and hit that like button to show us some support. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. And I want you to comment down below if you have traded for any of these players as well. Hey, if you want to ask us direct questions through a DM, go ahead and consider signing up to flockfantasy.com/land. Do you have trade questions that you want to ask us about personally? If you choose the Mother Flocker tier with our code LAND, L-A-N-D, you will get 30% off your membership, and you'll also unlock the fantasy hotline, which is a direct line to us for advice. Okay, the very first player I'm going to be telling you guys about that I keep sending trade offers out for, and oddly enough, I think his situation looks even better today now that I'm recording this. That is Mark Andrews. According to the community, he's tied in 2 in Dynasty. In my rankings, also tied in 2 in Dynasty. I think most people would have him tied in 2 at this very moment. But Mark Andrews is a proven difference maker at the position. And most tight ends, not really worth giving a lot of value up for. There's a very select few that are really worth investing draft capital in. And I believe Mark Andrews is one of those. Remember, since 2016, I don't know about you guys, that feels like it was yesterday. 2016, we're talking about, what is that, 7 years ago? Since 2016, only one tight end has dethroned Travis Kelce from his tight end 1 fantasy finish throne, if you will, reign, if you will. And that tight end is Mark Andrews in 2021. That's right, since 2016, it's been Kelce, and Andrews is the only player in Kelce's prime to dethrone him from that. If you look at the last 4 years for Mark Andrews, tight end 5, tight end 6, his tight end 1 year, and last year looks more disappointing than it really was. He finished as a tight end 4, but he missed 2 games. And if you extrapolate his averages, he was on track to finish as the tight end 2 this year. I mean, let's go back even further so we can understand how good Mark Andrews' tight end 1 season was in 2021. What I did is I looked at every tight end 1 finish since 2002. Every tight end who finished as a tight end 1, what was their best tight end 1 season? You can see at number 1, we have Travis Kelce in 2020. Number 2, we have Rob Gronkowski, who, again, those 2 guys, like, those are the GOATs of fantasy football. Those are the GOAT to the position, in my personal opinion, right? Those guys averaging over 20 points per game. Can't touch them. But after that, you've got Mark Andrews there at number 4. Since 2002, he has the 4th highest tight end 1 finish at 17.7 points per game. I'm here to remind you, I'm here to put some respect back on Mark Andrews' name. He is the difference maker at a position that gives you an advantage in fantasy or dynasty football in this scenario. And the big question in everyone's mind is Lamar Jackson going to be back? Well, we've asked that question for about 2 or 3 months, and I think we have our answer, because as soon as Odell Beckham Jr. signed to this team, both he and Lamar went to Miami. They FaceTime, they went to Miami, they celebrated at a nightclub. I mean, you don't just do that for a friend. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just go to a nightclub with a friend and be, hey man, congrats on your job promotion. Like, if they were that close, right? But that's not the scenario here. We know that Lamar has wanted to team up with OBJ. It makes no sense for OBJ to go to Baltimore unless Lamar is there. So I feel 99.9% sure that Lamar Jackson is going to be back in Baltimore this year. That is good for Mark Andrews. Check this out. Last year in 2022, let's look at the averages with Lamar and without Lamar for Mark Andrews, okay? Targets per game, much higher with Lamar. Receptions per game, again, higher with Lamar. Even receiving yards, touchdowns per game. He actually scored 0 touchdowns without Lamar Jackson this year. Points per game, it's ridiculous how many points per game he scores with Lamar. And then his tight end finish with Lamar, he was averaging, or he would have been the tight end 2. And without Lamar, he was looking at being the tight end 15. So if Lamar left, I was kind of worried, but I was willing to take the risk on buying Mark Andrews, the talent. Even with OBJ in town, this Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews connection is very rare to find in the NFL, okay? And if anything, I think OBJ at this point of his career is going to help facilitate a better offense for Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman. I'm not going to say that he'll be irrelevant, but Mark Andrews, in my opinion, will still be the centerpiece rather of this receiving offense. And he's still so young, right? Remember, Travis Kelce, in all of his greatness, he didn't have his first tight end one season until he was 27 years old. Mark Andrews last year was 26 in his first tight end one season. There is plenty of time left. And lastly, on OBJ, if anyone out there is worried, really, I want to ease your mind on that. This is a rare tight end, a hybrid tight end, the type of tight end that dominates in fantasy football. Last year, he spent 64.8% in the slot, 21.6% out wide. This is not a traditional tight end. He is a receiver playing the tight end position. In fact, no tight end spent more time in the slot last year than Mark Andrews. I'm looking at a minimum of 40 targets there. But look, if I'm buying, I'm thinking I will send, again, these are just conversations that you can start. This is the starting point, not the finishing line, right? But Stephon Diggs, I'll have a conversation about. Saquon Barkley, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, TJ Hawkinson. I think you can maybe wiggle your way around that one. Austin Eckler, Tony Pollard, Deebo Samuel. And then you're looking at picks, the 106 in this year's draft to the 107. That's kind of the range right there. And if you are a team that is ready to win now, which I'll kind of show you an example here in a second, like it's worth going to send those picks because otherwise you're looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe Quentin, Addison, and I think Andrews is going to help you win. He'll give you that difference at the position. I'm going to quickly show you a trade that I made recently with Mark Andrews. So I bought Mark Andrews and Tua Tagovailoa, okay? In this league, I went from a rebuilding team to a contending team pretty much in one offseason. I just set up myself really well to contend after the first year. I needed a QB2 that I felt more comfortable in because I didn't feel good about Kirk Duggan's kind of, moving forward into the future. And as much as I love Chris Olave, I had the depth to make this move. You can now see what my starting lineup looks like in this league. Justin Fields, Tua as my quarterback and super flex. I've got Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Jamison Williams, Jalen Waddle, Jahan Dotson, George Pickens, and Mark Andrews. My only starting tight end was Noah Fant with this team beforehand. And you might see I also have Bijan Robinson coming into the wing. So that flex spot's going to look a little bit better. And the 106 I can play around with still. Also have Treylon Burks, Kenny Pickett, Romeo Doubs, and others on the bench. So this is an example of, hey, if he's kind of the missing piece for you, don't be afraid to overpay. And I put this trade on my Twitter, and it was funny the responses I got. Some people were like, wow, you really traded away Olave? This is a bad deal. Other people are like, you got to steal. So I think that this type of trade is very, very possible for anyone out there who wants to make a move. I would suggest going to make that move. All right, the next player that I keep sending trades out for is Christian Watson. I think a lot of people are undervaluing the season that he just had and what he will be here for the next however many years in Green Bay. I have him ranked as my wide receiver 18. The community has him as wide receiver 19, so I'm just slightly ahead of them. But let's not discount how damn good Christian Watson was in the second half of last year's season. From weeks 1 to 9, it was an absolute mess. I think we need to throw it out personally. Like, he was dealing with injuries, wasn't on the same page with Aaron Rodgers, wasn't playing a high percentage of snaps, but he was fantastic from week 10 onwards. I would argue not elite, but like very close to elite from week 10 onwards with his production. Let's actually look at it from weeks 1 to 9 versus 10 to 18 for Christian Watson. Let's see this arc that he took in his rookie season. Targets skyrocket. The receiving yards per game skyrocket. His receiving touchdowns amongst wide receivers, he wasn't even in the top 100 from weeks 1 to 9. And then in weeks 10 to 18, he was tied for the most receiving touchdowns in the National Football League. Overall, in those time spans, he was a wide receiver 107 versus the wide receiver 9. Points per game, he was even better. Wide receiver 8, and then his snap percentage, which I talked about, he goes from playing about 30% of the snaps to almost 78% of the snaps. And I have a very good feeling that we're going to see Christian Watson about 85 to 95% of the snaps here in his sophomore season. He has proven everything that he needs to this team. In fact, Christian Watson's end of the season reminded me a lot of a rookie of the past in particular. And I want you guys to comment down below if you know which rookie I'm talking about. So player A was a rookie in the 2019 class. Think about that. Who was in the 2019 class? Again, if you have any guesses, comment down below now. But from weeks 1 to 11, he was the wide receiver 55, not very involved, only scoring under 9 points per game. From weeks 12 to 17, he blew up 21.3 points per game, a true league winner, and finished in that time span, 12 to 17, as the wide receiver 2. Very, very similar to Christian Watson's, just on a larger scale, because this is a better prospect that I'm talking about here. That player A is A.J. Brown, okay? Had very similar seasons. What did A.J. Brown do for the next couple of years? Well, I think he proved that he was well worth a first-round pick, even though he wasn't selected in the first round. Sound familiar? Maybe someone like Christian Watson? Let's have a look at some comparable rookie seasons for Christian Watson, just comparing him to other rookie wide receivers. I asked ChatGPT, okay? Just hang in with me for a second, okay? I just had some fun with this. I asked ChatGPT to show me the most comparable rookie wide receiver seasons since 2016, and I came out with the following data after I fact-checked it, okay? I looked at Christian Watson's stats. I said, in each year, show me the most comparable rookie wide receiver season. So you can see what we're looking at here. In 2016, Tyreek Hill was the most comparable. I mean, you have some hits and some misses, but a lot more hits than misses here. Really, Keelan Cole is the only one that you can point to and be like, oh, that's scary to see that happened. But great names in here: T. Higgins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown. Obviously, out of all of these guys, Christian Watson would have the fewest amount of receptions, but keep in mind, he probably played the fewest amount of games of any of these players as well. So you have to keep that in mind. Take it with a grain of salt, but just reminding you what some of these other superstars did in their rookie seasons. And lastly, I keep saying this offseason that I think people are overvaluing the combine and testing, but I think myself, I have to hold my hand up and say I undervalued how damn good Christian Watson was last year at the combine. I undervalued the athlete he was heading into 2022 rookie drafts. Since 2000, only 3 wide receivers, since the year 2000, you heard that right, since the year 2000, before iPhones were made, since the year 2000, only 3 wide receivers meet the following criteria. Freak wide receivers, okay? They have to be a minimum of 6'4". They have to have minimum ran a 4.36 or faster 40-yard dash. 3 wide receivers: Calvin Johnson in 2007, DK Metcalf in 2019, and Christian Watson in 2022. Those are the only 3 wide receivers to meet that criteria. Honestly, at this point, I don't like I'm not gonna say you're a hater, but if you don't think Christian Watson is capable of being a star in the NFL, then you kind of are a hater at this point. Like, the only question should be, is Jordan Love going to be able to make him fantasy relevant? Okay. And we've talked about this before, but I have the utmost confidence in this organization that if someone has sat behind one of the best quarterbacks ever in this game for 3 or 4 years, like, they have all the necessary, mental part of this game to now step in and at least be competent. I'm not expecting Jordan Love to be better than Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers. I am expecting him to be competent from day one and to at least make Christian Watson a fantasy relevant wide receiver as he grows with him. So the ceiling for for Watson for the next two or 3 years, you're looking at kind of like a DK Metcalf type player. The floor is obviously lower, but I am willing to buy Christian Watson, and it has much more to do with his price point right now. So I don't know about you guys, but for me, outside of Jackson Smith and Jigba, there's not a wide receiver in this 2023 class that I want over Christian Watson. Like, I can't really point to a name. I prefer Watson over Addison. I prefer Watson over Johnston. For me, it's Watson. The only player, like I said, JSN as a wide receiver over him in this class. But if you're going to buy him, names that you could consider starting a conversation around: Austin Eckler, Deebo Samuel, Michael Pittman, DJ Moore. I think that's a good one you could do right now. Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp. Kind of look at, moving off some of those aging wide receivers. And the best part about Christian Watson is his current rookie price tag. You can see here, I made a trade where I sent the 108 and the 406 for Christian Watson. Some people didn't like the trade on Twitter. Others were like, yeah, I would do this as well. So this seems to be the price point. I would highly encourage you guys to go out and make moves if you believe the same things that I do. Okay, the next player that I am sending trade offers out for continuously and trying to get on my squad is none other than Jerry Jeudy. Okay, and even more than Christian Watson, I think Jerry Jeudy is being even more disrespected, and I'll tell you why. Firstly, he's my wide receiver 21. According to the community, he's the wide receiver 24. And let me ask everyone out there, just be honest. Maybe you knew all the information I'm about to say. Maybe you didn't. Be honest with me in the comments. Did you guys miss the wheels up Jerry end of the season? Did anyone miss that? Okay, because I don't think it's being talked about enough. He finished as the wide receiver 22 in 2022. And he missed, I think, 2 or 3 games as well. Still finished wide receiver 22 in PPR, which is crazy on its own. But when I talk about wheels up end of the season for Jerry Jeudy, I'm talking weeks 13 to 18, okay? Because this offense hit a groove, and it was Jerry Jeudy who was the conductor of that train, right? Weeks 1 to 8 versus weeks 13 to 18. Let's have a look at this. And to be fair, like weeks 1 to 8, Jerry Jeudy was still pretty good, but he just went nuclear to end the season. Targets, you can see up to 7.5. Receptions up over 6 a game. Receiving yards, he's got over 87 receiving yards a game to, that back half of the season. Touchdowns over about, half a touchdown every single game. Fantasy points, he goes from 11.6 PPR points per game to 18.5, and he finishes in that time span as the wide receiver 6. My guy went nuclear. In fact, if you look at weeks 13 to 18 again, let's look at the wide receiver 6 to 10 in fantasy in that time period. Jerry Jeudy scoring 18.5 points per game, more than Devontae Adams, more than Tyreek Hill, more than Jamar Chase, more than Amon-Ra St. Brown, and all these wide receivers played the same amount of games in this time span. I seriously cannot understand why Jerry Jeudy is not being talked about more this offseason. I feel like there's just no one advocating for him aggressively, and I guess I want to be that person. Secondly, Sean Payton is in town, okay? The bad man, Nathaniel Hackett, is gone. This offense finally started clicking when Nathaniel Hackett was fired. Could you imagine the impact Sean Payton will have for this team? Let's take it back for a second. All the way back to 2005. The New Orleans Saints were god-awful. They were terrible. They were 3-13 in 2005, second worst record in the NFL. What did they do? They hired Sean Payton. And then the very next year in 2006, Sean Payton led the Saints to a 10-6 season and their first playoff appearance in 6 years while having the first ranked passing offense in the NFL. That's the type of transformation we need to happen here in Denver. The right man is in the right job to make it happen. In fact, let's look at Sean Payton's offense scoring points per game each year since 2006. We have a 16-year sample. From 2006 to 2021, Sean Payton's offenses were top half of the NFL in scoring points per game every year except his last in 2021. Now, obviously, Drew Brees had a lot to do with that, but it comes in a pair. In those 16 years, his offenses averaged the 6th best scoring points per game in the NFL over a 16-year span. Sean Payton's his offenses were averaging 6th best. That is incredible, including 3 years as the first team in points per game and 6 years in the top 3. I have full confidence that Sean Payton is the man to put this offense and this team back on track, and Jerry Jeudy is going to be a very important part of that. I remember people were asking him at the owners' meetings, "Are you trading Jerry Jeudy?" He's like, "Why would we do that? Why would we trade him? We want good players on our team. Jerry Jeudy is one of our best." Jerry Jeudy is going to be an important part of that. He's still only 23 years old, will be 24 years old by the NFL draft. And he just came off a career high in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. Yet no one's talking about him. I want to put some respect on the guy's name. I'm buying him, and I would give up some of the following players I would start conversations with: Javonte Williams, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, George Kittle, Chris Godwin, Dameon Pierce, Hollywood Brown plus picks. Okay, Let me show you an example of a trade that I made recently where I got Jerry Jeudy, and I fully expect people to tell me that I overpaid. I don't care. We don't care. Stephen A. Smith vibes. Tell me, we don't care. I got Jerry Jeudy, sent Hollywood Brown, the 306, the 309 in a second. I don't care about those third round picks. Really, what I was thinking in my mind is, hey, I'm sending a second in Hollywood Brown for Jerry Jeudy, and I'm going to bet on Jerry Jeudy. I mean, keep in mind, we got Sean Payton, who at one point, Michael Thomas was the wide receiver one. I'm not saying Jerry Jeudy will be the wide receiver one, but I feel very confident in a potential top 12 season, considering this will be the wide receiver core that Denver enters the year with. But I think as far as picks go, anywhere from the 109 onwards seems to be at least getting your foot in the door. So big Jerry Jeudy guy here, and let me know in the comments if you are. And lastly, I am sending trade offers out for Tua Tagovailoa. I understand there's a little bit of controversy here. Not everybody wants this guy, but we're gonna dive into it here. I have him as my quarterback 14, including all the rookies. The community is at quarterback 15, so I'm just slightly higher. I really think most of us do not realize how good of a season Tua had, okay, in 2022. We'll talk about the injuries in a second, but let's start here. Tua played 13 games this year, including week 4 versus the Bengals, where he didn't even get to halftime, okay? So for today's purpose, for today's exercise, let's take out that one game and let's look at his per game averages over the 12 games where he played at least until halftime, okay? Is that fair? I think that's fair, okay? So let's look at those 12 games Tua played at least until halftime, and let's extrapolate the averages from those 12 games. If we extrapolate those averages over a 17-game season, we can look at what Tua was on track for. That word there is key. What was he on track to do? It doesn't mean it would happen, but I want to show you how good he was, like the pace he was on, okay? If we extrapolate his 12-game numbers over a 17-game season, he would have been looking at around 4,870 pass yards, which would have been second in the NFL this year. He would have thrown about 35 and a half passing touchdowns, which would have been tied for third, and he would have thrown about 9.9 interceptions, which would be middle of, the pack in the NFL. And then in fantasy points, he would have scored 333.8 fantasy points, which would have been good for quarterback 5. Points per game, we're looking at 19.6 points per game in those 12 games where Tua was healthy for at least a half, right? And 19.6, by the way, is in 4-point passing touchdown leagues, because I know a lot of you guys are crazy and you play in that format for some reason. I like 6-point touchdowns, but I wanted to be, speak to a different part of the community there. That number is even higher in 6-point passing touchdown leagues. Again, I have a strong feeling that a lot of us don't realize those numbers, that a lot of us aren't thinking about it. We're only thinking about the injury, and that's fair enough. Let me know if you knew that, if you didn't. But let's talk about the injuries, okay? There's 2 ways that you can really go about this. Number 1, I need to get out. I cannot rely on this guy, and I understand. I hear you. Do what you have to do. Or number 2, those people who are like me, maybe a little bit crazy, I'm looking at this as, this is a pretty good buy low right here. This is a pretty good buy low opportunity. If those injuries never happened, this is what I'm saying to myself. If those injuries never happened, ain't no way I would be able to buy this guy low. So if you're worried about the injuries, I understand. I view it as a buy low opportunity. But more importantly, what has the team said or done publicly to back Tua? Well, they publicly stated he's their guy. They've denied any involvement in any quarterback trade rumors. They picked up his 5th-year option, which means not only is he their starter this year guaranteed, but also next year he'll make $23.3 million to be the starter with the 5th-year option. What more does this team need to say we're all in and we think Tua is our guy? We traded for Jalen Ramsey. We have Tyreek Hill. We have Jalen Waddle. We have traded for Bradley Chubb. We've signed a franchise left tackle. We're all in. We think Tua is the guy. We don't make those moves unless we think Tua is our guy. And lastly, let's talk about the weapons that Miami has put around him. A lot of people might be worried about this Tyreek Hill scenario. Okay, Tyreek Hill's only gonna play 3 more years. Big deal. That's what his contract was looking like. I mean, there's no guarantee he was gonna come back to Miami. There's no guarantee he's gonna be the same player in 3 years. Don't devalue a player and in return a player connected to him in Tua because you're worried about 3 years down the road. If you are consistently worried about 3 or 4 years down the road, you will never win Dynasty Leagues. And at that point, you're just continually rebuilding and not taking advantage of players who are in their prime, Tyreek Hill, for example. So that's just the wrong way to play Dynasty, in my opinion. I'm all in. I'm buying to it. You can let me know if you disagree. One of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL, and I think he's only going to get better with time, like a fine wine. If you've, if you've watched the beginning of this video, which I assume you probably wouldn't skip to this point, you've already seen the trade that I've made for Tua. But right now, I think the 106 to 107, that's the kind of range right now where you can go out and kind of send a rookie pick for. I mean, after the top 3 quarterbacks in this class, like for me, it's very clearly Tua over Will Levis. You might disagree, but it's very clearly Tua over Will Levis for me. So those are 4 players that I keep sending trade offers out for. And maybe you've made trades for these guys. Tell me in the comments below what you've done. If you disagree, let me know in the comments below. And if there's a player that you are actively trading for, there's probably like 3 or 4 other guys I could have said, but that video would have been too long. I mean, if you like this, let me know. I can do more of these. If you don't like it, be like, dude, stop. No, you don't need to do this anymore. I'll probably keep doing it regardless, but do me a favor, drop a like to show some support. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content, and we'll see you in the next one. All love. Thanks for watching. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.